Redolent of money and power, the Van Doren mansion was a rare survivor of the Gilded Age, and even rarer still, it was more opulent inside today than it had been a century and a half ago. Everything inside glittered and sparkled and gleamed. The furniture was bespoke or antique. The art was commissioned or inherited from ancestors lucky enough to have nabbed their Picassos and Pizarros while the paint was still fresh. Not that the house had anything on the girl who lived inside it. I watched Serafina van Doren sweep into the library on her grandmother's arm, her face glowing and her eyes bright. She wore her thick curls up off her neck, showing off the lines of her throat and the delicate notch of her collarbone, and a tangerine dress made of silk skimmed over her slender curves. She looked like a queen. She looked like dessert. A dessert I wanted to eat for hours. I looked over to where Keaton Constantine leaned against a wall, paneled in wood imported from a French chateau, and found him already looking back at me, with an irritating smirk on his full lips. "Looking a little hungry, Reese." I'd spent years learning how to master my expressions, first around my mother and father, and then later around my friends. I had no interest in anyone learning how I felt. I especially had no interest in anyone learning my secrets. So I knew my face betrayed nothing when I said, "I'm on a diet." "Sure," Keaton said, still smirking. "You know what they say about diets, right?" "And what's that?" I asked. "They don't work." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Keaton thought he knew me. He thought he understood the way I felt about Sarah. I knew for a fact he didn't. Because if he really knew how I wanted Serafina van Doren, he'd chain me to a radiator like a werewolf any time Sarah and I were in the same room together. Ignoring him, I turned my attention back toward the center of the room. Most of our circle was here, the Hellfire Club, and the girls who'd taken them down over the last school year. There was Lennox Lincoln Ward, the reformed bully, and his terrifying girlfriend Sloane Lauder. There was Owen Montgomery, the reformed asshole, and his valedictorian sweetheart Tanith. And then there was Finn, the reformed playboy, and Lennox's twin sister Aurora, who was literally a princess, and also literally a terrifying hellcat. Only Keaton wasn't mooning over a girlfriend tonight, and that was because his soulmate Iris Briggs was in Paris right now, studying at the Sorbonne and giving his overworked dick a break. Honestly, I didn't care about much. Sarah and my car were about it, and even my car was negotiable. But I did give a shit about the Hellfire Club. Standing between those stone lions outside the New York City Hellfire House, looking up at the huge wooden door about to swing open and admit me into the halls of the ruthless men who'd gone before me, had been my first flush of real power, of real, raw power,